All right, welcome everyone to session 2 in Quantum World. One of my most favourite things to talk about, and Quantum World is all about delving into that little world of, or that large world of quantum physics and quantum mechanics, and how that applies to us as coaches. Some interesting feedback from last week's session. People really seem to get a lot out of it, a lot of curiosity around this world. So I'm glad that we're having this conversation and continuing it. And this is only one of the many, many ways in which you can extend your coaching practice, not only through coaching theory and NLP theory, but also through application of other theories and integrating them into your coaching practice. And quantum is certainly one that's very complementary to coaching theory, and this is an area that I love to play in. So thank you so much for the feedback that you've enjoyed it too, because I think it really has application, and very, very practical application. Ricardo, you can find last week's session. You should get an email in the next, oh gosh, usually you'd get it pretty soon after the class. I know there's been a couple of hold-ups on the technical end of things recently. But Ricardo, what happens is that you'll get the classes pretty much straight after the class. They're recorded, and then after that, they're available for about 2 weeks on that sort of suspended space on the website, and then they'll drop into the appropriate module that we think this belongs in. Now, this is pretty advanced stuff, so this belongs in about module 8, I think. This is quite advanced stuff. So, Ricardo, if you are interested in revisiting this material from last week, just wait for the class recording from last week, which you should receive from Doc, and then it will drop into the appropriate part of the modules later on, because we like to pace everything out. Tamara, not sure about that. That's a technical question that Doc might be able to answer for you. Okay. So, guys, welcome, and thank you so much for being here, everyone. There's a huge class tonight. Wow, lots of people coming to join us in Quantum World. So without further ado, let's get started. So a very warm welcome to you all. It's my intention tonight to serve you all on whatever level I possibly can, and I would love to ask you what your intention is for this evening. So do you have an intention for this evening? Let's set our intentions as a group right now. And if you were with us in last week's class, you know why I'm asking you to do this, and that's because we're all connected through the world of quantum physics. Quantum physics tells us that we're all actually connected, and we are all one, part of one living organism. And that's through something called the zero-point field, which is the energetic connection that connects all things at a subatomic level. And so my question to you tonight, guys, is let's set our intentions right now as a class, as a group of people who are coming together. Tamara says that she's here to learn. What other intentions do we have? Just waiting for some answers to come through there. Jamie's here for some more tools. Ricardo's here to find information that you're not aware of to implement in my life. Wonderful. Jamie's here to learn something that will help me as a coach. Adrian is, oh, this is a huge class, as all the life coaching college students are here in the quantum world. Yes, you're right, actually, Adrian, on an energetic level, absolutely. Jamie's also here for techniques. Why else are we here, guys? What is your intention for tonight? Did you just rush to come to the webinar without thinking about what you wanted to get out of it? If so, that's cool. That's the busy world that we live in, but I do ask you to pause right now and think about and set your intention, because it makes a difference to what you're going to get out of it. Beata is here because she loved last Wednesday's class. Awesome. And I'm hungry for more. Fantastic. Thank you, Beata. Ray is here to grow. Danielle is here to be more aware of myself and others. Oh, and Beata's saying she did lots of research in regard to quantum after last week. Yeah, there was a couple of people who posted about that on the Facebook page. Wonderful news. Jackie's here to learn new stuff. Adrian's here to be prepared to challenge his current understanding of the world. Well, get ready, Adrian. Wonderful. Thank you so much, coaches. And let's set our intention now to come together as a group and to support each other in unseen and seen ways, and to learn some wonderful things so that we can serve our clients even more. All right. So, the quantum world. Just an introduction for anyone who wasn't here last week. Now, you missed a fair bit of theory last week. So if you're in that boat, then just stay with us and things will become more clear as we move through the class, okay? Quantum World, this series is about exploring the world with a different view. It's about uncovering the magical world of possibility that exists at a quantum level. What do I mean by quantum level? I mean the very, very minute subatomic vibrations of energy that exist inside atoms, which are the stuff that stuff is made up of. And as we learned last week, around 80% of stuff is actually the void. It's empty space. But when you go down to a micro level within that empty space, there are actually massive vibrations of energy. So that's what we're looking at tonight, that quantum level. Why are we talking about science in a coaching class? Because what we've discovered, what science has discovered, is that we actually have an ability with our intention, with our consciousness, to affect the way the quantum world works. And so the implications for us as coaches are that we can do so much more for our clients than simply talk with them and give them tools and techniques, that there is so much more we're doing simply by being in the room with them. We're already altering their existence and their experience. So that's why I love talking about this stuff in a coaching context. It gives us more, I guess, more structure and more meaning to what we already intuitively know is happening in a coaching session. Quantum World is about discovering some incredible concepts to share with clients, and more than that, to use in our own lives. And it helps us to find meaning, connection and potential in every day. And Quantum World is about learning about the hidden layers of existence and harnessing them to create change. Okay. Now, what I'll do is just give you a really brief overview of what we spoke about last week before we move into this week's material, which is all about the connection, the deeper connection. So quantum physics is a field of science and research that's a genuinely new way of understanding and relating to the world. It goes some way towards reconciling the rift between the traditional opposing views of science and religion and allows secular people to see the mystical through the eyes of science. So it's just I guess it's a way that we can view the world in a mystical kind of way, even if we don't attach that to any specific religious belief. It opens up that world of possibility for people who perhaps in the past have been very rooted in the fact that if I can't see it, I can't believe it because I'm all about science. So this is science at a different level, and it allows us to open up those conversations for people who want to see the evidence. It shows us that at a fundamental level we're all connected to each other, the world and the universe, and that what each one of us does, says and even thinks has an impact on the whole ecosystem. And it allows us to renew this question that we have at our very core. What is life all about? What are my relationships with other people and the natural world all about? And how can I interact and live in a way that will benefit the entire system that I'm part of? And that's very much the question that we'll be addressing this evening through a couple of really cool bits of research and understanding just a little tiny bit more about this huge body of research, and then thinking about how that might apply to our own lives. Now, what I'd like to do, guys, is check in with you after last week's class. For anyone who was here, can you give me an idea of what meaning you took away from last week's class? Any little tidbits or pieces that meant something to you, or any thoughts that you've been having since last week? I would love to get some feedback from you about what your introduction to quantum last week has meant for you in the last week. There was actually probably 80% of you who are here today were on last week's class, so I know that you are aware of what this all means. Ricardo's saying, I was not here, but we are all one. Yeah, thank you, Ricardo. Jackie says that observing matter can change its form. Yes, absolutely, Jackie. And Paul said, I did some research on the experiments with random number generators and was gobsmacked. It's like the Force. Paul, it is. You know, suddenly all those mythical creatures and stories that we see in movies and stuff, they all sort of start to take on this extra meaning, don't they? It is the Force. May the Force be with you. Jamie's saying interconnectedness. And Lexi's saying everything is connected and anything is possible. Yeah, fantastic. So at this point, I would really like to encourage anyone who is new to this area. I know that you might be listening to some of this and be thinking, oh, that sounds a bit mystical and a bit airy-fairy and hippie for me. And what I would ask you to do tonight is just suspend that disbelief that you have for one moment and be prepared to go into this very weird and funky world with me. And I'm going to tell you some great stories of research in the quantum physics field, and we'll think about what that means for us and what the implications are in what we call the real world. Tendai is saying it's about the power of connection. Monet is saying it's the connection between science and religion via quantum physics. Yeah, Monet, that's been huge for me actually. That's been my personal journey. Adrian's saying it opened up ideas of new possibilities, and Tamara is saying, oh, are the PowerPoint slides available? Of course they are, Tamara. They're always available on the Facebook page, or they'll be available when the recording becomes available, yeah, in the next week or so. Okay. Oh, Tamara, you might just have to make do with some notes for tonight, okay, if they're not up there yet. Okay. So let's have a look then tonight at the concept of infinite connection. The quantum researcher and journalist Lynn McTaggart, who I'm just a massive fan of, I know that you've heard me speak about her before, and I've got a couple of her books here which I'm going to be telling you some stories from tonight. She says this: we're all swimming in a sea of light. We're all swimming in a sea of light. What does that mean? Well, what she's talking about here is our connection at a quantum level through tiny vibrations of energy, some of it in the form of pure light. Now remember, as we spoke about last week, we're all connected through something called the zero-point field. The zero-point field is a low-frequency energy vibration that occurs at a subatomic level inside and outside of all things on the planet and in space. It's this sort of energy vibration that actually is within all matter at a subatomic level, and it's within the vacuum as well, what we call the vacuum. So it's present everywhere at all times. What this means is that there is no out there. There is no out there where we end and where everything else begins. We are all in one gigantic energetic field together, and we're all one. Now, I know that for anyone who wasn't with us last week, that's kind of a mind bender, but just stay with me. I guess maybe what we're talking about really here is a scientific take on the idea of, you know, the unifying force or the one or the thing that connects us all. And it's actually scientifically proven to be something called the zero-point field. Some people call it the zero-point field. There are other names for it as well, but that's the one that's most commonly used in the scientific community at this point. And the zero-point field is something that actually in scientific experiments at a subatomic level, they actually do a mathematical calculation where they subtract mathematically the background interference that the zero-point field causes. It's like this sort of static that when you turn on the TV and leave it on and walk into the other room, you can still kind of hear it. So it's something that is so present and is so widely known amongst the scientific community to be there in matter and also in the vacuum that they actually do a mathematical calculation when they're doing energetic experiments where they're measuring energy, and they actually just do a subtraction of the background noise, which is the zero-point field. Yeah, Mona, you're right. It's actually sometimes referred to as the God particle. In fact, theoretically, there's been a very tiny, tiny particle which they've always known existed at some point. It's called the Bose-Higgs. Bose-Higgs? Oh goodness, I've lost the name. The Bose. Can't remember the name. Bose-Higgson particle, I believe. And they actually, about 6 months ago, they actually got the measuring instruments down fine enough that they actually believe they have now isolated that particle. So it's something that it was originally referred to as the Bose-Einstein particle, but then there was another physicist who did some more calculations and he owned more of the theory, so it changed to his name. And about 6 months ago, they actually isolated that particle, and popular media has called it the God particle because it's the unifying particle that exists within and without all things. However, of course, that's just a way to popularise the science and make it understandable to people. Bose-Higgs, yeah, thanks, John Millam. Higgs boson, there we go. Yeah, I think you could be right there, Paul. Higgs boson, yep. Thank you. The Higgs boson. So yeah, that was isolated maybe about 6-8 months ago, and very, very exciting time in the scientific community, although we're still coming to grips with what that actually means. But it is something that was only theorised to be there, and now we know for sure that it is there. And that was discovered at CERN in Switzerland in some of those particle accelerator experiments that they've been doing. All right, so here we go, back to the sea of light, which is just one way of looking at this. Now, there are demonstrations from the work of a gentleman called Fritz Albert Popp, P-O-P-P, that we're all beings of light. Human beings, in fact, at a subatomic level are sending out and receiving photons or small particles of light. It's one of the many unseen ways in which we communicate with each other. Now, what I'm going to do is tell you some information from Lynn McTaggart's beautiful book, The Bond. In 1970, while investigating a cure for cancer, a German physicist named Fritz Albert Popp stumbled on the fact that all living things, from single-cell plants to human beings, emit a tiny current of photons, or light, which he labelled biophoton emissions. He immediately understood that a living organism makes use of this faint light as a means of communicating within itself and also with the outside world. Now, over 30 years of research, Popp and over 40 other scientists around the globe have been doing all kinds of research on biophoton emissions. And one of the popular applications of this is in the use of X-ray and MRI technology and improving those. They maintain that the faint radiation, rather than DNA or biochemistry, is actually a true conductor of all cellular processes in the body. They've discovered that biophoton emissions reside within DNA, so it's actually part of our DNA, and it sets off certain frequencies within the molecules of individual cells. Now, when they were first taking these measurements, Popp and his colleagues way back in the 70s used very precise equipment capable of counting light emissions, photon by photon, enabling them to discover something remarkable. When skin ointment was applied to one point of the body, a large change occurred in the number of light emissions, not only where they'd applied the ointment, but also in distant parts of the body. Furthermore, the size of the change correlated in every location of the body. So Popp recognised that he'd uncovered the primary communication channel within a living organism, which uses light as a means of instantaneous global signalling. He also discovered that these light emissions act as a communication system between living organisms. In experiments with a number of different organisms, including human beings, he discovered that individual living things absorb the light emitted from each other and send back wave interference patterns, as though they're having a conversation. Once the light waves of one organism are absorbed by another, the first organism's light begins trading information in synchrony with the other organism. Living things also appear to communicate information with their surroundings. For example, bacteria with their nutritional medium, the inside of an egg with its shell. And these conversations also occur between different species, although the loudest and best are reserved for members of the same species. Now, Pop and his research team were intrigued to discover that the emissions of an organism have measurable differences during daytime and evening, and they also follow weekly and monthly patterns that mirror solar activity. And independently, he confirmed that the central thesis of another scientist's work, which is that a living thing is constantly making time with the sun. So what does this mean? It demonstrates that with this tiny current of biophoton emissions, we create a quantum bond with our world. With every waking moment, we're taking in someone or something else's light. What does this mean for you, coaches? I'd be fascinated to hear what this means for you. I find that research absolutely extraordinary. The journey that they've gone down with this particular piece of research is that they found that in certain states of health and unhealth that there are different measurable emissions of those biophotons. So, and specifically people with Parkinson's have a very disturbed wave pattern, and as their symptoms get worse, so do the biophoton emissions become more dissonant and less harmonious. So there's all kinds of applications in terms of science and medicine here. I'd love to hear what your feedback is there. It's a very new kind of way of looking at things, but basically what it boils down to is one of the many ways in which we're connected at a quantum level is through exchanges of light, and somehow that communicates. Adrian's saying that could be energetically feeling others. For example, another person radiating negative received by the other person becomes negative and gives back negative. Yeah, Adrian, absolutely. And in fact, that's something we'll be looking at a little later on. Yeah, Jamie is saying biophotons sound very similar to auras, so I'm thinking, what's the difference? Yeah, Jamie, I'm not sure. There is further research about that. Auras, so biophotons are not visible with the naked eye. There's no way to see them because they're individual particles of light. The way they first discovered it was that they were doing some research on what is the process where a plant makes chlorophyll. I can't remember. I'm thinking back to my biology days. Yeah, photosynthesis. Thanks, Adrian. You're right. And they were doing some experiments and looking at the ways in which plants manufacture chlorophyll, and they found that there was a tiny light interference in the experiments, and they said, well, what the hell is this all about? And they actually discovered that the plants were giving off light at the same time they were going through photosynthesis, and this is how this was discovered. So it's not something that's visible by the naked eye. Jamie, auras, that's getting into a different area, I guess, and a different interpretation. That's sort of, I suppose, more of a spiritual interpretation. Jamie, I've seen auras. I don't always see them, but I have seen them in the past. Don't know if that's any use to anyone at all, but yeah, I've had that kind of mystical experience. I have no idea what it means, but I've certainly seen them or sensed them in the past. I'm not sure that the two are directly connected, but this research is all about that kind of stuff. So Jamie, I'm going to recommend a couple of books, and I think if that's interesting to you, this would be a wonderful path for you to journey down. John is saying, we need a way to build biophoton rapport with our clients. Yes, John, I think so, and we're going to talk about that later. Tendai says, it reminds me of anchoring in the energy that we pass. Yes, Tendai, awesome. Ricardo is saying light is just the image of energy which vibrates at a certain frequency to create different light forms. Yeah, Layla, it's like sharing each other's light. I love that. We're sharing each other's light. And so then, coaches, you have to ask yourself, what kind of light am I putting out? What is the intention of my light? What am I communicating to others with the light that I am shining? you know, all of those wonderful metaphors about how you need to shine your light in the world, they suddenly make a lot more sense, don't they? So this is one of the many micro ways in which we are connected. Let's have a look at a couple more. Now the connections, of course, don't stop there. It doesn't just manifest itself in meaningless emissions and absorptions of light photons. Somehow this connection also allows us to catch a glimpse of the thoughts, feelings, experiences and emotions of others in all kinds of ways. And here I'm referring to a book called The Field, also by Lynne McTaggart. And I just love this story because I've got a personal experience like this one, which I'll share with you in just a moment. Deep in the rainforests of the Amazon, the Achua and the Huarani Indians are assembled for their daily ritual. Every morning, each member of the tribe awakens before dawn, and once they're gathered in that twilight hour, as the world explodes into light, they share their dreams. This is not simply an interesting pastime, it's an opportunity for storytelling. To these tribes, the dream is owned not by the dreamer alone, but collectively by the group, and the individual dreamer is simply the vessel that the dream decided to borrow to have a conversation with the whole tribe. The tribes view the dream as a map for their waking hours. It's a forecaster of what is to come for all of them. In dreams, they connect with their ancestors and the rest of the universe. The dream is what is real, and their waking life is considered a falsehood. Okay, so that's a kind of a tribal kind of view of what dreams are all about. But this is backed up by, I guess, or a different interpretation is through some fascinating experiments that have been done by Sol Fieldston, who's a City College doctoral student in the States. And he basically has participants in two separate rooms, one of whom is asleep, and they're monitoring their brain waves and seeing what kind of sleep state they're in. And in a separate room, someone else is concentrating on an image and attempting through their intention to send that image across the 0 point field to the dreamer and induce a dream of that type. And time again, that has actually been proven to be effective. In fact, the dreamer has been found to be a vessel for borrowed thought, a collective notion present in the microscopic vibrations between the dreamers. Yeah, okay, I'm going to stop reading there because that's all the relevant stuff there. Now, have you ever had an experience like this? When Hayden and I first got married, we went through this incredible period. I guess we were very close, where we, maybe about 6 months, we had shared dreams. Whenever either of us had a particular dream, we would wake up and tell the other one, and there would be elements of it that would be the same. And it really freaked us out at first. And I guess eventually it didn't stop happening, but I guess I don't dream so much anymore, and Hayden's never been much of a dreamer. And then when I came across this research, it really reopened my eyes to it. And what that was, I guess it was just a time in our relationship where we were getting closer together. So we were actually passing information across to each other through the 0 point field while we were dreaming. Now, what the science tells us is that this is to do with the relaxed state that our brains get into and our receptiveness to the information that's available to us in the 0 point field when we're in certain dream states or in certain hypnotic or sleep states. And all the early work that was done from about the 1950s onwards through the 60s and 70s and researching into extrasensory perception basically discovered that we're kind of like our brains are kind of like a radio station where we're receiving information and then feeding it back out again. So the possibility there for us to consider is that the 0 point field contains information from other people that we are then receiving, and we're then claiming them either as our own thoughts or our own aha moments, or perhaps they're coming to us as dreams or impulses. And this is a possibility that has, I guess there's been so much research done about it. There's chapters and chapters of research, even just in this one particular book that I'm talking about, that talk about all kinds of ways that we receive information from the zero point field and then feed it back out again. And one of them is just fabulous. Let me find it. I'm just looking at the book. Okay, so basically Lynn McTaggart says we are walking random event generator machines. At any moment of our lives, any one of the microscopic processes that make up our mental and physical existence can be influenced to take one of many paths. And what they found is that where two people have a synchronized kind of bandwidth, a synchronized kind of brain output and receiving signal, that the person who has what's called the highest degree of coherence or regularity in their brain waves and brain patterns influences the brain waves and the output of the less organized recipient. The more ordered of the pairs of people, so the more ordered person in the pairs that did these experiments where two pairs tried to affect each other's thoughts, the more ordered person affects the quantum state in the more disordered other person and actually starts to bring that other person into the same brainwave frequencies. Now, there's one particularly interesting part of research by an Italian researcher called Laszlo, who says that this notion of bandwidth would account for a very interesting phenomenon amongst young children. Young children under the age of 5 so EEG studies of the brains of children under 5 show that they permanently function in alpha mode, which is the state of altered consciousness in an adult. You know, that dream state, or that state that we get into when we meditate, where your brainwaves slow down? Children, therefore, are open to far more information in the field than the average adult. In effect, a child walks around in a state of permanent hallucination. Now, if a small child claims to remember a past life, the child may not be able to distinguish between their own experiences or someone else's information which is stored in the 0 point field. So this is not, so what this Italian researcher Laszlo is saying is that it's not reincarnation, but it's just accidentally tuning into someone else's radio station by someone who has the capacity to receive a large number of stations at any one time. So what does this mean? To some degree, our wishes and our intentions create our reality. We might be able to use them to have a happier life, to block unfavourable influences, to keep ourselves enclosed in a protective fence of goodwill. And there's a lot of research that says you can block yourself from the energy that the field is giving you, the 0 point field. So there are techniques you can use for that. So basically what these researchers are all saying is be careful what you wish for, because you're putting it out there in the universe, and seeing as infinite possibility exists all around us, we're actually attracting that to us. So what an interesting piece of this research is. It's all about the information that we send back and forth to each other, basically with our brains. We're like radio stations. We're there to receive and also give out information to the other people around us at all times. So let me get some feedback from you guys about what that means for you, because this is a very, very different part of the research. And for anyone like me who's kind of tuned into what's going on in group situations, for example, I tend to pick up on the energy in group situations, and I don't mean, you know, the woohoo energy. I mean I sense whether people are happy, sad, what's going on, and this kind of makes sense for me now. Adrian's saying, is that why when people meditate they're opening up to the other information available? Yes, Adrian, the initial research seems to indicate that. The caveat on that, Adrian, is that you can use visualizations to block any energy that you don't wish to enter your space when you're in that alpha state. So there are techniques you can use, and they're just simple, you know, picturing a wall around you or whatever, that seem to effectively block those those messages from other people and from the field. Okay, Lexi is saying, I tend to say exactly what my mum was going to say very often. Same thing happens between my husband and me. Perfect example, Lexi. You know, the whole thing where you're about to ring someone and they ring you. We've all had that experience. Guys, that ain't no coincidence. That's the field working for you. Layla is saying it's like deja vu. Children under 5 process the most learning in their life. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, Tendai, the power of words, what we say we become. Yeah. Mona is saying it's a good explanation to explain past life experiences and telepathy, etc. Yeah, and Mona, that's what a lot of this field of research is about. They're trying to prove or disprove those phenomenon, and just about without fail, the answer is there is no answer, but there seems to be something going on at a level we don't understand. Yeah, very good. Okay, cool. Thanks, guys. Yeah, Ray, it really is kind of mind-boggling, isn't it? And I want to bring you back down to earth at the end of the class, okay? So stay with me and just enjoy the ride. This is kind of like surfing a wave, guys, and we're right on the crest before we come crashing back down and we go, okay, well, how is this going to apply to our lives? So tonight's code, grab a pen, guys, and that's very much a reality check. Tonight's code, before I share one more beautiful story with you, is QPIC2. QPIC2. Just write that down. You'll need that for your assessments later on. Okay, QPIC2. So, as we have already spoken about, this works at an individual level, but what about at a group level? Have you ever noticed that groups of people have moods, and that some people's moods seem to be contagious and they affect the rest of the group? Well, let me introduce you to a piece of research that really talks about this. There was a young lady in California whose name was Sigal, and she had noticed early on in her career that in the office environment that she was working in, the energy would change completely depending on this one woman who seemed to be very dominant in the working environment. So people who worked with her, and in fact the whole office, even the people who didn't have a particular connection with her and didn't have to talk to her very much, acted very differently when she was at work. They were stressed out and unhappy and snappy when she was at work, and then when she wasn't at work, they were a lot more open, friendly, relaxed, more work got done, people cooperated better. And this particular young lady, Sigal, decided that was something she wanted to investigate. Now, it affected her so much, it influenced her decision to pursue a doctoral degree in organisational behaviour at Berkeley. And what most fascinated her about the experience with her sullen co-worker was how mood contagion between employees might influence relationships, decision-making, and even profits in a business. And this is very, very similar to the experience I've had. I've worked with some really interesting personalities who have piqued the same question in me, and that's very much part of the journey I've been on, working as a group trainer and facilitator for large groups. So after she earned her doctorate, she accepted a post as an associate professor at Yale School of Management, and she decided to test what she had begun to call the ripple effect of emotion. And so she designed an experiment to do this. What did she do? She randomly assigned 94 undergrad students at the business school to small clusters of 2 to 4 others, and asked each participant to play the part of managers on a salary committee. And their job was to negotiate how best to parcel up limited sums as pay bonuses for their employees. Each manager was to act as an advocate, attempting to obtain the largest sum possible for a candidate from his department who'd been put forward as particularly deserving. And all the bonuses were entirely dependent on each member of the group coming to an agreement within a set amount of time. So she put them into small groups where they had to come to an agreement about how to divide up a limited monetary resource. Now, unbeknownst to the students, the researcher also placed someone in the groups, a drama student who had been specifically trained to have a different mood and a different energy level to the group. His name was Rick. Rick was assigned to represent the same employee in each group and was always asked to speak first in order to see if his mood would set the emotional tone of the meeting. So they videotaped each of these little pretend meetings that they had, and the results were absolutely striking. Even though Rick made identical requests of every group on behalf of his candidate, the mood of each group differed in accordance with Rick's mood. The collective mood and Rick's role in creating it also had a significant influence on the tone and the outcome of the negotiations. In the first test group, Rick was told to go in with pessimism and negativity. So they found that the group was less likely to cooperate with one another. And in the second group, he was calm and happy, and they found that that group was far more likely to bond and work with each other productively. The collective mood and Rick's role in creating it also had a significant influence on the outcome of the negotiations. The more cooperative a team, the higher their bonus splits. So the effect was completely unconscious. None of the participants had the slightest idea that his mood was being artificially manipulated. And on the questionnaires about their feelings before and after the experiment, the participants all attributed their own effectiveness or ineffectiveness in the group to other factors, never to the collective mood. They didn't even think about what the emotional state of the group was while they were doing the negotiations. They looked at other factors as being to blame or to thank for the outcomes of the negotiations. So this was an extraordinarily simple but very powerful experiment, and it confirmed her findings or her observations from way early in her career, that even just one person, if they set their intention and set their mood and emotion in a certain way, they can affect the outcomes achieved by an entire working group of people. Now, I personally, guys, I found this to be very true in my own observations. Over the years, I've worked as a trainer for about 13 years in group situations, and very early on in my career as a trainer, I realised that there was far more at play with group dynamics than just whether I was having a good day or a bad day. And it was a lot to do with the dynamics of the people in the group and the dominant personalities in the group. And so I absolutely agree. I think this research, I'm just glad someone's proven what I already know. What do you think? Have you experienced this at work? I bet you have. Talk to me about it. Have you ever worked in a working group or a department or an environment where one person could really change the mood of the group? Layla's saying, I had a similar situation and it had a negative effect on me. When that person left, I've never been happier, even my colleagues, because she affected them negatively. Yeah, Layla, I've had similar experiences. Bob is saying, yeah, even at parties. Great example, Bob. Yeah. Yeah, Paul. Yeah, it's a thing you get to observe from that observer's point of view as a trainer, isn't it? It's fascinating. Adrian's saying, does that have an impact on the importance of be, do, have for us as leaders or for other leaders? Yes, Adrian, I do believe it does. Although the leader of the group is not necessarily the rapport leader of the group. You need to set that intention first and then work very diligently to go about being the main influencer in that room, and I guess managing the negative energy that may come from someone who, you know, intentionally or unintentionally is affecting others. Yeah, Ricardo's saying, I've experienced what you're talking about all the time. Tamara, I'm reading The Devil Wears Prada and Miranda Priestley is exactly as this person. Yeah, right. Ray, upon reflection, you look at your base camp. We had a great mood within it and we all walked away very happy and achieved a great collective outcome. Yeah, you're right, Ray. And you know what? Other groups have had different experiences, and that's been because of the personalities in the room. And at a quantum level, It's actually about the energetic connections that are between us and how those who are in high coherence can positively affect those in the rest of the group. And similarly, anyone who has a lack of coherence and has a strong, I guess, energetic output will negatively affect the rest of the group. And it's not just about the words and emotions, it's about stuff that goes on at a subcellular level. Tendai, I've had workmates who brought a negative attitude and it would drain the whole team. Yep. Charmaine, yes, I wasn't aware of it until I started learning coaching, so now I try to counteract it. Yes, good. Charmaine, awesome. Yeah, Mona, it's also to do with focus. Guys, I love this conversation. Do you see how this ties in with all the stuff we talk about as coaches? It's about intention. It's about focus. It's about serving. It's about rapport. Yeah, all of this kind of fits in and just serves to strengthen what we already know about the world of the unseen through coaching. John, how do you detect the strong emitters? John, I wish I could say, well, you have to wear a foil hat, but that's not it. And John, unless you've got any of the beautiful scientific equipment that these guys have done when they did the experiments, I don't think you can. But I think what you can do is tune into it and start to get a feel for it yourself and trust. And actually, this is very much where we're going to go for the rest of the class. It's about trusting your intuition and your instinct about what's happening at an unseen level and working with the right intentions to I guess, influence it to help you achieve the outcome you want to achieve. Yeah, Ricardo, you have to realize it's about intention in the moment. Yeah, Ricardo, thank you. So guys, I love this. I love when this is happening in class because what we're just starting to talk about now as a group is the next slide. So let me move on. This is why I adore having these conversations with you guys, because you're already at a whole different level where you're willing to ask these questions and go down this very funky and strange path. So how do we go about working with this? How do we go about incorporating this kind of information into our current model of reality? And what does it mean for us and for our loved ones and our clients and the community? So I think that's quite a complex answer, and I think the first thing for me to say is it's different for everyone. What you choose to make this mean or not mean for you is a very personal journey, and there has to be 100% respect for the fact that this is all just maps, right? Everyone has a different map of the world. Everyone has a different idea of what this means for them. What I make this mean in my life and what you and your clients make it mean in your lives will be different. So that's cool. But what we've done tonight is open the doors of awareness. Awareness that some of those things that we think are a bit out there or strange, but we somehow intuitively know to be true, are now starting to be proven through these studies in the quantum world. So the stuff that we're all passing off as coincidence or luck are starting to make more sense to us as we see that we do in fact shape our own reality and that there are many other sources of influence and information around us than we can see. So at first it's simply just an awareness building thing, right? It's about, you know, for you guys as coaches, this means doing some more research, picking up the bits of this that really resonate with you and seeking to increase your awareness in regards to your own business and your life. Now, for your clients, it might be as simple as just working with them on the belief that there is something more to our experience on this planet than what we can see or sense ourselves, and helping them learn to trust their instincts on, you know, just a little bit more in everyday life. It's simply an opening of the conversation. So many of our clients, and it will depend on your niche, but for me personally in my coaching practice, I've found that so many clients, when I first start working with them, they're in a huge amount of pain because long ago they stopped listening to their own inner knowing, their own intuition. They stopped imagining what's possible. They stopped looking for things outside the realms of what they know to be true. And so in a sense, they're disconnected from the possibilities that are available to them through the 0 point field. So this is simply just opening that door again and accepting that it's okay to get back in touch with that part of themselves. And it could be your experience of what you call spirit, it could be called God, it could be called the universe, whatever label you want to put on it, guys, that's cool with me, and I have ultimate respect for all of those. And it's simply just a door opening to awareness that there is an unseen part of life that affects us on a very real level. After awareness comes understanding as we seek ways to use this information. Now for us as coaches, this deeper understanding comes with working with clients at a deep level and reflecting and paying attention to what parts of our experience in a coaching conversation might tell us, might give us some indicators that there's something going on in the realm of the unseen. And this is really a deepening of our own inner power as we start to make the connections and see how this is already at work in our lives. And for our clients, this is where we can ask them more questions to push their boundaries if they've shown an interest in going there, okay? So it's about building this more than anything into your questioning style for your clients. And I don't mean referring to quantum physics or the 0 point field. You don't have to do any of that. But allowing the question to be asked. So things like this. If it was true that we're all connected and your boss who you're fighting with is actually just a reflection of you, what could that possibly mean? So it's just about doing that sort of if-then kind of questioning with them where we're saying, hey, you know what, if it's true that we're all one, then how would this situation be different? If it's true that your energy is actually affecting the other people in that office as much as theirs is affecting you, what responsibility could you take for that? So it's just about opening up the door of understanding to, at a very basic level, how some of this might be a different way to view the world. And then after understanding, of course, comes action. And this is where for us as coaches, the gates can really open as we can make some more intentional choices about how to use this knowledge in our lives. So this might mean setting intention at the start of the day or before a meeting or before a conversation. It might mean committing to certain intentions for your clients, your coaching sessions or your business. And can I give you, I'll pause there, one particular very specific thing that I've taken away from this and built into my coaching practice is knowing that I must at all times have the intention for the client to find their own way and for them to uncover their own magnificence. And that's not just in a coaching session, it's also in their everyday lives. So whenever I'm working with clients, and as you know, I usually tend to work with them for only a short period, 6 weeks. When I'm working with a client for that 6-week period, I pretty much constantly hold them in some point of my consciousness. I'm not really consciously going, ooh, I must think about Joe right now, but I just, after my session with Joe, I might think about him, I don't know, on an occasion, or it's about holding an intention that he's going to go off and do whatever he needs to do in between sessions, and that when he comes back there will be more progress. And I find that if I do that, the coaching goes really, really quickly, and if I fail to do that and treat them as separate and our interactions as only going on, coaching is only going on when they're actually in the room with me, I find the coaching goes much slower. That's my own personal approach and experience. I wonder if that might work for you. It might mean working on even more rapport building. I think the applications for rapport building here are huge as a specialist skill with this information just ticking away in the background. It might mean using more positive affirmations or positive language in our workplace or group situations. And it definitely means taking more responsibility for our own emotional state and having an awareness of how that affects other people. And of course the same goes for clients, which ultimately is a more holistic approach. In coaching we call this ecology. If it's good for you, the people around you and the community, then it's an ecological decision. And this is not a new idea in coaching. This is something we work towards in coaching anyway, because it's about accepting ultimate responsibility for our lives. When you make decisions that are ecological, that make sense for everyone involved, you're really owning the information that you're sending out into the quantum soup, the 0-point field. You're making decisions that are good for the whole, because remember, we're all connected. And ultimately, that's what coaching is all about, right? Accepting responsibility, stepping up, doing what matters, and making your life here on earth count for something great. Because whether you accept it or not, whether you know it at a conscious level or not, everything you do is being communicated to everyone else around you, and actually the whole universe. Okay, so some comments here. Mona's saying, one of my greatest assets is my intuition. It doesn't fail. Yeah, wonderful. Mona is also saying, failing to pay attention to intuition has always turned out badly. So like the idea that there may be a scientific way of explaining it. Yeah, thanks, Mona. Cool. So guys, I would love to hear any comments, questions, feedback from you. We have a few minutes to spare at the end of this class. And I want you to give me some reflection of what I've just spoken to you about. Tell me what this means for you. Tell me one specific thing that you might do in your coaching practice that takes advantage of this information and uses it for the greater good. Okay, Ricardo has a link. Ricardo, can you post that link on the Facebook wall, please? Because I can't post that to anyone here on the webinar. Tamara is saying, set my intention better every day. Yeah, and Tamara, the research actually says that instead of making it like this crazy, oh, I have to do this, I have to do this, that you simply wish it, you put it out there, and then you let it go. Non-attachment seems to be the key for some reason. Now, the names of the two books that I've been reading from tonight, and I will tell you these again next week, are both by an author called Lynne McTaggart. Lynne, L-Y-N-N-E, McTaggart, M-C-T-A-G-G-A-R-T. Her first book is called The Field, and the second book is called The Bond. The Field is very, very full on dense science. The Bond is a little more easy to read and understand, but for anyone who's into the detail, probably not quite detailed enough. It's more of a social book, whereas The Field is really the research. Bob, this field is very foreign to me. I have to get used to it or learn more about it. Bob, if you want to, it's all up to you. This is a field that I have found has supported me in my coaching. Other people have found other fields, so you choose what you want to do. But it's all out there and available to you all the time. Lexi's saying, after this class, I'm going to go out on the back deck and wonder at the stars. Yeah, Lexi, because you're one of those stars. Did you know that? You're connected to it, right? Beata saying there's lots of information on YouTube. Yes, there is. Tendai should live on purpose and focus really on what I desire rather than what I do not want. Tendai, that's such a wise thing to say. I love that saying. Let's live on purpose. Let's live on purpose. Let's live our purpose. Let's choose where we want to go. Absolutely. Ricardo, Ricardo, if you're on Facebook, you just need to go to the Life Coaching College Facebook page. If you are not on it yet, then make friends with Doc Murdoch and he will sign you up to that page, okay? And then you can post that wonderful link there for us. That would be wonderful. Okay, further questions, comments, anything, anyone, before I sign off for the night? Yeah, Jackie, focus. What we think about is what we get. Jackie, I just love that this stuff really just backs up and gives us even more evidence of the things we already say in coaching, isn't it? It's just amazing. May the force be with you, Paul. Thank you so much. Excellent. All right, I'm going to sign off for the night, and thank you so much, everyone, for being with me here. I know that you're always all with me anyway, but it was lovely to have your company and have this conversation with you. Keep reading, keep learning. The world is a wonderful place.